I want to thank the Chamber for having set this up so that we're able to come to you and let you know a little bit more about us and the way we think. I also want to say good evening to the students, the parents, the teachers, the staff, and superintendent of Forney ISD and the Board of Trustees. I also appreciate all these people that are participating in the City Council election. That means that they are wanting to serve you, and you need to prayerfully think about them. I'd like for you to prayerfully think about me too, by the way. I moved here in 2005, and I have 25 years of teaching experience, so when I started wanting to give back to my community, it seemed like if I could do it through the school board, that would probably be the best way for me to be able to do it. There are cards like this over on the tables over there if you want to know more about me. So with that, what I'd like to do is go on straight to the question. Common Core. That thing has been abused so much over the past few years, and it deserves some abuse. It really does. There are things that are there that are not what they should be. I've even taught a lesson from out of a Common Core lesson and shown them how it really doesn't work. Trying to hook up electricity, just using batteries, and they left out steps, and doggone, it didn't work. So I think that what we need to do is, like I see the state of Texas doing now, and like I've seen in the past, and that is that we need to think about what is it that our students today need to know as they go out into the world. We need to have a citizen of the world ready whenever they do graduate. And that means maybe even having a trade instead of going on to college. And I think that once we know what those things are that they need, then we need to prepare lessons that will help them get there. We can do it as a district. We can do it as a team of teachers teaching the same subject in a school. Or, like when I started out, I had my book and my pencil, and I just wrote down what I thought they ought to know, and then I figured out how I was going to teach it. And I figured the labs for it also, because I'm a science teacher. Anyway, that's what I think concerning Common Core. Thank you.
Imagine you've been on the school board for the past 5 years. You're looking back, and what would you want to have said, or what would you want people to say about you that have been your greatest accomplishment?
I'm concerned when I see a candidate come to the school district that comes with an agenda, because I'm afraid at a time like that they may not really see the vision that's there, and they may not blend to be able to come up with what's best for our students. I believe that we need to use best practices, so I would be encouraging that. I also believe that we need to have representation for those students in the classroom, and that's why I am running, is because I think I've been there long enough that I kind of understand how that mind works. So I want to be able to see it through their eyes, and I would hope that I would be remembered for seeing things as the students see it and helping us to be able to implement that vision that we have, which Forney ISD does already have a vision statement, and they've worked very hard on it. They're also working on those lessons, by the way, that I talked about.
And you're going to introduce yourself, and after you do that, I want you to answer the question, what would you bring to City Council that it doesn't already have?
First of all, I'd like to thank everybody for coming out tonight and thank the Chamber for this opportunity. Introduce myself. My name is David Johnson. I've been a Forney resident for a little over 11 years, and I got in trouble last Monday night because I failed to mention my lovely bride, and I'd better do that because that's a cardinal sin for those of us that are married. I recognize my sons, but not my wife, and for that I'm profusely sorry, and she's here tonight to support me, and I'm glad she's here. A little bit about myself too, then I'll get to the question because I think it leads into the question. That is, I am a retired municipal government employee, 36 and a half years, 3 cities. I also currently serve on the Forney Planning and Zoning Commission and on the Forney TIF Board, and I was also a member of the 2006 Bond Committee. And to answer the question specifically about the vision, that is exactly what I bring, is the perspective of a career municipal government employee. It's had the opportunity to be in 3 different cities. I've seen a lot of things. I've seen things that I thought were well done. I've also seen things that have left me scratching my head going, where did they come up with this? Why do they do it? It may not be the right thing to do. And so with all those perspectives, that allows me to have a vision that perhaps other council members currently don't have. I think you do need to have that broad spectrum like that, not only of mine, but the others as well. But that is the vision I see, and that's what I would bring, is that of someone that's been in the trenches for a long time and understands what's going on out there. And I think that also allows me to have a much faster learning curve because I have had those experiences. Thank you.
My wife is back here in the back. She teaches at Johnson Elementary and has for the past 20 plus years, and she's here to support me tonight. The thing that I think I bring is that I know there's been a lot of infighting in town and in the city council about the way some projects are going. It is not an I thing. I can't do anything by myself, but I do work well with others. I also stand my ground on the core government abilities, what the government is allowed to do and not allowed to do. I would stand up for those principles. We have problems in the city, I understand. And I can work with each one of the people that are elected, but mostly I would want to hear from you if you elected me onto the city council. Because without you, the government doesn't work very well. You are the government. You just elect leaders to come in and lead the direction of the city, or the county, or the state, or the federal government. So what I bring to the table is I can work well with others. I've done it for 33 years as a middle school teacher, and you know that you have to work with middle schoolers to get them to learn and to work in their environment. So I have that ability and would bring that to the table. It would be a we project, not an I project.
Ray Stevens. I like to take long, slow walks on the beach. I like to read poetry. Come on now, give me a laugh. Seriously. Hey, for real, hey, I'm Ray Stevens. I'm a retired Marine. Some of you have already heard this speech before. I moved to Forney in 2010 when I retired from the Marine Corps. And like I said, every unit, every place I've ever lived, people love the military. They love the tax dollars you put in their community, but they're ready for me to leave after 3 years. And so when I moved to Forney, I wanted to get involved in my community, and I started going to boards, to meetings, to council meetings, and I got involved in a couple boards, and I was lucky enough to be appointed my first time, and then I was elected last time. So that's me. I'm Ray Stevens. And I'm probably going to get reelected because my wife, like I said last time, is probably going to vote for me. I'm going to vote for myself. Now, I'm a realist. I know a lot of you are here to support the candidates that are sitting beside you, left and right. And most of you have already made a decision. But I do hope you will think about voting for me, all right? And what do I bring to the council that they don't already have? I've been on the council for the last 30 years. Well, what I do bring is an outside opinion because I've lived all over the country, I've lived all over the world. Okay, I've only lived in Forney since 2010, so I know and I understand what it's like for most of our residents who are moving in here. It's easy in Forney to think, well, you live here 20, 30 years, this is how it should be. Most of our residents, 2/3 of our residents have moved here since 2006. And I represent that population. So that's what I bring to this right here to this council. And I'm a team player. And I agree with the current council right now. Hey, we've had some hiccups, but I'm going to tell you right now, we work well right now. We work good. That's all I have. Thank you.
Guys, my name is Scott Regan, running for re-election to place 4. Do I get to introduce myself?
Absolutely.
Awesome. I've lived in Forney since 2004. I've been privileged to call it home since then. No plans to change. This is my home. This is my forever home. and I have a lot of vested interest in it, just like you guys do. I have 5 kids. I joke about it a lot. Wouldn't change it a bit, love them. But when I'm home alone, it seems more like 9. Seriously. This is where in my notes it says pause for laughter, but I don't hear a lot of laughter. So, in answer to the question, what do I bring? I like to say that I bring almost 20 years experience in business, in corporate America, and now in nonprofit. I like to say that my business acumen is pretty strong. Analytical abilities right along with it. So when I look at things, I look at it from that angle. As Ray said, we have a good mix on the council, and that's what you need. A successful council needs to be diverse. You need to come from all walks of life, corporate America to small business, everything in between, different experiences. Because at the end of the day, that's what you do. You come together for a common cause, for the same purpose, to arrive at the decisions that we're tasked to do. So in answer to the question, I like to say that I bring that.
Hi, my name is Mary Penn, and I'm running for the office of mayor. I've been married to John for several years, and my kids have been raised here. My grandkids have been raised here, and so they're here to support me. Thanks for coming. But thanks everybody for coming, because this shows your involvement in the community, and really this is what we need. When I started this journey 5 years ago to be on the city council, all I wanted to do was serve my community that I love, and I continue to do so. As mayor, I want to serve my council in the capacity that I have served my community and continue to do so. We do have a mix of different personalities. We all have different knowledge. We all have something different to bring to the table. I think what sets me apart that I have is enthusiasm and excitement and passion. Those are just inside of me. That's who I am. I have knowledge in different areas. I'm not an expert probably in any of them, but I do work well with the team that we have. I will work well with whoever that we do have, but I think that what I have to bring to the table is the enthusiasm, the excitement, the energy, and the passion for a city that I love. Thanks.
I'd like to thank everyone for coming tonight too, and thank the school district for allowing us to use this beautiful facility. And we're really blessed to have it for sure in the community. So, and I'm Rick Wilson, and married my wife Sandra, here for 40 years. Certainly support me tonight, I think. But I have my 2 children here tonight, Jessica and Philip. They both graduated from Forney High School. I have 10 grandchildren that are either in Forney schools or have been in schools, 7 of them which have been. And we just are proud to be in this community. We've been here for 26 years, and I have my business here in town, Classic Industries. I employ about 60 people. We're invested into the community. We have, various interests. I have a real estate company and other companies that are here in town. Work with the churches. Have an interest into the Forney Educational Leadership Foundation, where I was one of the founders, that allows every Forney graduate of Forney High School a scholarship. So I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud that I've got a senior graduating this year, one of our grandson, Ryan. So it's a great time. What I would bring different to Forney, I bring 40 years of experience as being a business leader. I've run companies since I was 18 years old. I actually started as a bricklayer and built my companies up from there. And so I have various business knowledge across a vast scale. My businesses have included transportation, manufacturing, construction, aviation, and so I have a vast knowledge of the business experience. And I'd love to bring that to the city of Forney to help it grow and help it prosper in a way that I know the vision of Forney. At the same time, keep the culture that we have. I mean, that's really the reason we all moved here, isn't it? The culture that's here in Forney. So we want to not only protect that culture, we want to nurture it, and we want to keep it moving forward in a way that's just a blessing to all of us, and that we can pass on to our younger children. Thank you.
Imagine this question I asked Barbara Jo Green, that you've been on city council, or if you're the mayor, you've been in the mayor the last 4 years or 5 years is what the question asked, and you're looking back and you'd like to add, we'd like to know, what would you say is your greatest accomplishment? So what we're trying to do is, what is it that you want to accomplish? So what is it that you tell the citizens here that you want to look back and be able to say, this is something that we've accomplished?
The thing that I would like to have said that I accomplished is working on a lot of the infrastructure in Forney. If you live out where I do, I live out in Mustang Creek, and if you go down the new part of 740, a lot of the streets that feed into 740 hold water because the drainage wasn't done correctly when it was built. If you go around to Heritage Hill and it rains hard, it holds water somewhere up around 2 feet, up closer to the part of 740. If we go downtown, going down Boat Ark, at certain times of the day, you might as well be in downtown Dallas because that's about the way you get through there. So if I had been on the city council for the last 4 or 5 years, I would like to say that that we fixed a lot of these problems that are continuous from the time I've moved here. I've never been in parts of the city. I'm sure there's parts that don't flood or hold water, but a lot of parts do. And there's a lot of streets that need some work. They have the potholes, need just resurfaced. So I would say that I was instrumental in working on the infrastructure.
We'll go ahead and say that, that's one of the aspects that looking back 5 years, I would like to see completed, because my background is a public works guy. So streets, water, sewer, drainage, that's all what I really care about, and that's, really was my first love and continues to be today. And it is critical to maintain your infrastructure, because that is what draws a stable growth to your community. It brings the kind of growth that you would like to see that's managed. It is a variety of growth, whether it's retail, commercial, light industrial, because not one sector alone can bring what we want to see here. Residential alone can't do it. Retail alone can't do it. You've got to have that good mixture of all types of development. And that starts with your infrastructure. So those would be the biggest areas I'd be interested in. Also, one other big area that I think, as not only Forney, but the entire county, we know the growth that's facing this county. I would definitely love to see and be able to look back and say in the last 5 years we've improved our intergovernmental relations, where we work well with everybody, school districts, county, other cities, because we are all in this together. Thank you.
I would say, looking back, of course, we want to look past all the great housing developments that we had, and the retail, and the amenities, the parks, the infrastructure, the highways, the thoroughfares, everything that we hoped we could accomplish in that time. But I guess for me, what I would like to think would be my greatest accomplishment would be that we had a moral, cultural fabric that excelled other communities, that other communities would look at us and go, wow, we want to be like Forney. Look at that moral culture in the community that they have there, that they're raising their kids, and they're doing the community things that we all want to do. And that's what we want. We don't want to be Frisco. We don't want to be Allen. We don't want to be Plano. We want to be Forney. But what do we really want to be known as? And if we've got that moral integrity and the fabric woven into this community, what better thing than that?
Well, I think that we have some pretty exciting things going on right now. And what we need to do is continue with them. We are finally making some progress over by the bridge, and we have some things going on with the water park. I'm convinced once that water park comes in, we're going to get the retail that we need, hotel and restaurants. We have situations that we need to work on, but unfortunately the government doesn't always move as fast as we would like it to. And part of that is the roads. I have been working with one of our senators over there. I like to call it Lake Heritage Hill because every time it rains it floods over there. But when you work with TxDOT, the process is even slower than the trouble that we have sometimes working as a council. Things don't just happen right now. They take time and they take patience. But as we move along, I think in the direction that we're going, I think that we're moving in a healthy manner and we need to continue to do so. Thank you.
There's always been the interest there for the second phase, to incorporate other things. The big question has always been the funding issue, how to fund it. And, you know, there's not many answers there, and some of them we may be faced in the future to implement the phase 2, which is part of the Parks Master Planning, is we may be faced with another bond issue. I know folks don't want to hear that, but, you know, and I'm sure that parks will use, there's grants you can use. At some point in time, I'm sure there may be a need for a bond election for that, which again leaves it up to the citizens to make that final decision for the council. Thank you.
About this is that it's one of those items that I really don't know very much about. It's not been up on top of my list to find out, and I do apologize for that. I do believe that we need good parks. I also think we need neighborhood parks for neighborhoods, small ones that the kids can go to. I know it's not part of the big master plan probably, but it is what I feel, because when I was growing up, I lived across from the park and it was enjoyable. But as far as the master plan for the main park, it's not an item that I'm up on, but I will find out as much as I can as soon as I can.
You know, when I travel around the county, the one thing that comes up over and over again is how proud I am of our parks. Our parks set us apart from every other city around. And I love to see the park full. I take my kids up there. When you see as much activity as you see up there, you know that that's a success, right? One thing we need to address is a big thing. The need of our youth organizations is far surpassed our capability, okay? When you talk to Forney Youth Baseball, you talk to the football organization, soccer, all the ones that the park serves in different capacities, you see that they've far outgrown and outpaced our capability. We have to answer that sooner than later, because as Forney grows, more kids will come in, and one thing that attracts is youth organizations and youth sports and involvement, and we have a tremendous opportunity here. And once we answer that, guys, I tell you, the sky's the limit. Is that phase 2, as what was mentioned? I'm not sure. Funding is our main issue. Funding is always the issue, right? It's a $10 million question. But again, I feel that an answer can be had, and sometimes a creative answer at that. Whether it's potentially a bond, yes. That's just one option amongst many. But to answer the question, I feel that we need to answer those youth organization needs before we do anything else. Thank you, guys.
Master plan for the parks is another one of those really exciting things that we have in the bag. Our parks, our youth programs have completely grown, and we do need to go on to phase 2. We need so much more than phase 2. That's why we had to have the master plan. Funding, of course, I'm repeating what they're saying, but I do want you to know that because of our bond rating and our fiscal responsibility and being able to refinance the bonds the way that we are and not kick the can down the road, we are looking for creative ways to use the money that we're saving in other areas because of our bond ratings go up. And that is very, very important. That's not something that a lot of cities have. So we're very fiscally responsible in that area. Working together as a team, that's another thing that we have to find out, the creativity of how we're going to make that money work and what we're going to do. The parks are very important though, the youth are very important. And this year, I actually finally was able to get us an adult softball league. Now, we signed up 38 teams in one day, and they want to play ball. They're playing ball on a baseball field with a baseball pitcher mound. So there's a need there also. But the master plan is a good thing. We just have to be creative in how we're going to make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Getting into the parks, so they're actually going to other communities right now, and we do need to address that. Mulberry Park needs probably the first priority, I feel like, for parking and for access of the roads that we're going to do. But as far as funding for that goes, you know, we've missed some very important opportunities to do some funding. We just entered into an agreement with a power plant that cost us about $9 million over 10 years. And we missed an opportunity. If people remember when the power plant came into this area, they gave us $1 million for the parks fund. And instead of renegotiating that after 10 years, we just gave up on it. We gave in to them, and we didn't even try to negotiate to get money for the parks, money for the school district, money for the taxes that we're overpaying on right now. Everybody forgets, except me, it seems like. And if you look at the contract that was signed in June of last year, I don't know where we're at on that. I can't imagine a city entering into that kind of agreement without even negotiating it out front in front of the public and talking about it. I think it's time that we get some leadership in that addresses these problems up front and not worrying about how we're going to do it later when we had the opportunity to do it.
Not abating. No one's mentioned that yet, but we're working out over there by the water park. We're trying to make some things happen right now, and hopefully we'll have to do it. We can do it without a violation. No, I'll disagree right now on I'm just going to say it right out front. Okay, I disagree on the power plant thing as we're not lost some money for the parks. Okay, I'm just going to say it up front. The people did negotiation for 2 years, and when you have a contract for 10 years, when they come back, they got stuff on the table too. Okay, and so we took the best deal we could get at the time, because if we went to litigation, it'd take over 2 years, and we'd lose that money. And that come off our city budget. And we don't have an endless pit of money. We don't. We have to operate. We have to be able to buy your fire, your police, and everything else. So I'm not going to pass the buck on to a power plant of why we can't get things going. The reason where we're at now is because so many citizens have moved here since 2006. That park is great. And everybody loves going there. And so everybody's using it. And we're outgrowing the capacity of it. And we know that. We've got to work with the school district. You got high school swim teams who've got to go to rock wall. We got to work with them. We've been doing planning committees with the park board, who are citizens just like you, who are recommending things to us, so we can try to bring in a YMCA and things like that. I've only got 30 seconds left. So no, what I'm saying to you is we've got a plan for the parks. We do. All right? Hopefully we'll go to the bond election, but we're here. We see the issue. I know I'm out of time, so.
Are you ready to put a moratorium on new development unless there's an agreement between the city, the school district, and the county?
Okay, I believe in responsible growth. City of Forney went through a large expansion. I'm one of those people that moved in. I've lived around here, and I'm grateful for the house I moved into, my wife and I now. I believe that we have a responsibility to grow responsibly. We're going to grow no matter what. People are moving out from Mesquite and Dallas, and they're moving out in all directions. I know many people who have moved to Forney since we've moved here. So I would say that we need to continue with responsible growth, responsible development. That means some starter homes, some higher-end homes, and we need to work with the school district because, you know, they got to build schools to house children that are coming out here. And as an educator, I know Forney has great schools. My wife's been here for 23 years, and she does a great job. And Forney schools do a great job. So we have to work together with that, and we have to work together with the county. And I would be willing to work with all that, but we're going to grow no matter what. It is something that's inevitable, and we're going to continue to grow. So we need responsible leadership in that. Thank you.
I want to make sure that was correct. That is a very difficult area. One thing I will say is that if you read the Texas Municipal Annexation Act, there's a section in there on cities' control within ETJ. It's not much. The state does not want cities to have that much control in the ETJ. And any development out there should and does require cooperation between all entities involved, which would be both the county and the developer. Not developer, excuse me, the county and the school board. You know, there should be, obviously, cooperation with that developer. You know, it does need to be responsible growth, and it does need to be something in place because, again, according to state statute, cities can do very little other than put the subdivision requirements, which is going to take care of streets, water lines, sewer lines, and drainage. But lot sizes, size of homes, unless you've got an agreement with that developer, you know, anything can be put in out there that developer wants to do, and he's got the backing of state law to do it. So I do agree that it does need to be responsible. There should be definitely be heavy conversations in place between all three entities, and if it is needed and necessary, yes, written agreements. I do not think a moratorium is the issue, because anytime you try to stop something that's inevitable, and it's happened in other places, it usually causes more problems than it solves. Thank you.
Listen, there's a lot of subdivisions going up right now. And a lot of these developments were approved years ago. That's a fact. They were approved years ago, and the developers are cashing in right now. And I know, being on the city council, there's a lot of contention about Vintage Meadows and a few others. I'll tell you right now, I'm looking at the school board president, and I'm looking at the school board members over here right now. I want to work with you on the future developments. We've already talked amongst this council. The council's already talked and said we're going to put a screeching halt, not a moratorium or anything like that. We're going to start going above and beyond to work with that school board. And I'm going to put Robert Dobbs, he's not here right now, but we had a meeting with a P&Z president the other day. He said he paid for the luncheon, by the way, so make sure, he said he promised that we would have a meeting, and we're going to start trying to have more meetings with the school board along with our economic development team in the city to start saying, what are we doing right? How are we doing you wrong? Or how we can work this out? We haven't done it in the past. We know that. We talked amongst each other, but we've never done it for them. And it's going to take that. So no, I will not vote for us to do a screeching halt on it. What I'm going to say is, I want to, along with this current council, to work with you to make something work in the future. That's all I have.
Actually, to our future. You know, when you take the case of Vintage Meadows, it's a hot button topic right now. Vintage Meadows was going to happen one way or the other, and that's just being truthful. That's just being honest. With Vintage Meadows, if we hadn't sold them sewer, right, it wouldn't have happened. You know, that's false. Heartland, right across the highway, they had it signed and sealed, just not delivered. They were going to do it themselves. The developer, by state law, counties can't get involved in zoning. There could be multifamily out there. There could be anything built out there. Anything. The product that exists out there now is much more favorable than what could have been. And that's what we have to look at. We've got to look at this globally. There's a lot of dynamics at play that's not necessarily at the forefront of information. But in the case of Vintage Meadows, again, I hear a lot about it. When I walk the streets, and I talk to everybody right now during this campaign season, the tax rate comes up number one. Vintage Meadows is right there following it up because people didn't quite understand it. 30 seconds. So, to summarize, you know, the product that exists out there at Vintage Meadows is the best that we could possibly do with what we have. And that's just being truthful, okay? Single family is much more appealing to me than what could have been with multifamily. And I guess my time's up. Thank you.
We can do, these people have votes. Are they saying they can't turn anything down? If they didn't have a choice, then why would they even have to vote on it? Of course they had a choice. And it's the choices that they're making with the poor leadership at City Hall that needs to be changed. It's time for a change at City Hall. We've got to work with the school district. We've got to get out there and lead, not follow. There's things that should have been done that haven't been done, and we're still talking about it. Talk's over with. Time is to act. We don't have 2 years to wait and decide if someone's going to do something right. We've got to start now. And the way to do it is get groups together, get with the school board, get with the county, get with the developers, come up with a plan, go to P&Z, pass ordinances that don't allow these in here. We can pass an ordinance in 3 days on something else. Why don't we have an ordinance that ramps up our housing? Of course we can have that. It just takes work. It takes leadership. And it takes someone in there willing to do it and not leading from behind. Thank you.
When it comes to these mud districts, there are advantages and disadvantages. There's benefits and drawbacks. The benefits are they're going someplace where the city can't go because we don't want to annex in people who don't want to be annexed in. The drawbacks are that we don't get property tax on it. Okay? They are going to come. They could have hooked up through Heartland. This is correct. They didn't have to come through Forney. So the question is not stopping it. The question is working together. We need to work together with the developers, and we're definitely not the enemy of the school district. We're part of the school district too. We all need to be working together. And the key to that is simple communication. If we're lacking in that area, the only way to improve it is to do it. I'm willing, and I think that the rest of the council is willing. I can't speak for them. And we have a city manager that has to report to us, and we want him to be willing. So we not only need to be working with the school district, we need to be working with the county also. But we are going to move forward, and we want to do it in the healthiest manner that we can for everybody. Thank you.
How do you plan on retaining our current business, what we have? And then, you're right, it's a three-part, of bringing future commercial development here to the area. And finally, does the EDC, should it be back to an autonomous entity? So that
I think to keep our businesses here to begin with, what we need to do is to incentivize them to get them here. And once they're here, I think that is their responsibility to keep themselves here and grow. We can help them get their foot in the door, and then they need to be responsible for themselves. I don't want to see any business fail, and it breaks my heart to see a business that has to shut down because I want to see us thrive, and that's where our tax dollars come from. To bring in the new businesses, that does have a lot to do with the EDC, and I think that they need to do the incentives to get the new businesses here. Part of that is, I wasn't really for the city buying properties. I thought that private industry and developers should come in and do that, but obviously that wasn't in agreement with the rest of the council, and I understand why they did what they did, and that's why we work together, because you accept what you have and you move on with that. They brought you in at a lower rent to help you incentivize and get your business started, and then hopefully eventually you'll want to buy the property, so then we can get the property tax and not just stay renters. As far as the EDC goes, that's one of those things that to me there's two right answers, because when I came on board, the EDC was separate, and while I was on board, the EDC became a department, and I think that it can work either way. I think whichever is best for the city and how it's going to best serve the city. I think the city, the council as a group would have to decide that, but I'm open and flexible with that because I've seen it work both ways. So I'm sure that it has benefits and drawbacks like anything else, and those are things that we would have to discuss. Thank you.
We need to lower the tax rate. Tax rates hinder any businesses, and of course, our tax rate is highest in the whole area. If you take the average of the taxes over a given area around here, we're paying almost $500 a month more if your home value is $200,000. So not only does it hurt businesses, it hurts homeowners, it hurts everything. So we've got to lower the tax rate to help retain the businesses. And then to bring in new business, of course the EDC needs to be involved in making incentives and helping out. That's the main priority for the EDC. Of course, it's a separate entity. It's a corporation that's set up, and it needs to be separated and kept separated from the city. They have their own board of directors, on bylaws, and they're a nonprofit organization. And they should not be using money that is not provisionally able for them to use. There's several provisions that the EDC can loan money or projects they can invest in. So we make clear that we stay in those guidelines as we're helping out. So that's how we keep the EDC in check. But as far as downtown properties, absolutely, we should stay away from buying properties and doing those things. We're supposed to be incentivizing businesses, not buying properties to help. Because it actually hurts a smaller business when you think about it. We're creating an incentive that's competing with a business right across the street that there's no way they can compete with. If you're buying the property, then they're not paying the property tax. They're not doing the things that they would normally do. We can't create an incentive that harms the rest of the business community at the same time. It has to be an equal and level playing field. And that's what I hope that we try to do in Forney. Keep it an equal and level playing field.
Small business, as I talked about Monday night, small business built this community. It built many communities across this great nation. And we're not going to forget where we started. I'm excited as you are to have Kroger and Walmart and Aldi now and all these different options to choose from. But, who was the first one in town? Brookshire's, right? Well, I'll never forget that. They've been a community partner forever. We made a great step, what I feel is a great step, at the last council meeting. We lifted the 125-seat requirement in the downtown district, the zone downtown, for restaurants to be able to serve alcohol. It wasn't an alcohol issue. It was more small business. Because Jackrabbit, this has already gone to the voters, and it passed at a 2-to-1 ratio. So we had alcohol in town already. This was just giving the ability for small business to compete at the level with Chili's, Applebee's, and the others that serve our community also. So to me, small business needs to be taken care of, and I think we're doing that, but there's more that we could probably do. In regards to attraction of commercial, is that the question, right? Attraction of commercial business?
Yes, sir, that was the second part,
Okay.
attracting or bringing future commercial development.
Again, that commercial development, it's going to allow for a community to not only be able to live, but to be able to work also. Instead of, with me, I have an hour of windshield time every morning and every evening coming home. How awesome would it be if I could just drive up the road 2 minutes? It'd really help on my gas bill, I can assure you that. But to be able to live and work in the community I call home would be pretty awesome, and I think others feel the same. So anything we can do to incentivize, to attract, we've got to have the ability to give, there's a lot of opportunity out there for businesses, for cities to compete against each other. Everybody wants the same thing. Everybody needs the same thing. It's quality of life. But commercial will help ease the burden, 30 seconds, will help ease the burden overall on the private homeowner. That's the end result. The last question about the EDC. I'm for, the EDC does a great job in, am I out of time? Okay, good. The EDC does a great job with the attraction of business. They market our city very, very well. A city without limits, right? That's our tagline. And I hear that. When I hear it outside the confines of Forney, I get pretty excited. Thank you.
All business. That's a fact. In fact, there's a lot of big business here in Forney. People make a lot of money, who've made a lot of their money off people moving here since 2006. All these homes being built, all these residents are here, they're all going to that hospital. All the electric, all the plumbing companies here, they're making money off these houses being built and these businesses being built. And that's a fact. We just don't want to talk. We don't want to admit it. I fully agree with the 125-seat lift. I made the motion for it because it was an old ordinance. And I agree to help with our businesses. I think we do need to look at some of our ordinances. How do we fix things to make it user-friendly for businesses in Forney? Okay? On attracting businesses, we're already doing it. We've got big companies wanting to come into Forney right now. Our EDC's already working it. They're working it. They're trying to bring them in. They don't make it public, but they're trying to work it. So I think we're doing a good job on that. On the EDC board, I'll be honest with you, I was not on the city council when it was separate. I was on the EDC board, and before I got put to the city council. I'm flexible on listening to all angles. Should it be separate or still fall under the city? I'm very flexible with that right there. But I think one of the things too about bringing businesses in is working again with a school board. I really do believe that. And I believe if we get a college campus, I'm a big supporter of that. And I hold nothing back. I'm a big supporter of us participating with Trinity Valley. I'm a big supporter of that. Because when you get a college campus, you get stuff like that brought to our community, businesses will come. Their employees will want to come here and work here because their kids can go to school here. And so I'm a big supporter of that. And again, it goes right back to the school board. We got to work with you on that to bring businesses in.
All we can do is to make sure we have the appropriate city services. That we have the appropriate level that allows them to feel comfortable here, to stay here. And also that, the departments that directly affect those businesses are what I would call consumer happy. We want them to be able to walk in there and sit down with the appropriate official, whether it's building official, whoever, and that there be good communication there and there not be any snags or snafus. Because that's a big department right there in community development that works with those businesses on a daily and weekly basis. So it's utmost critical that, the staff there obviously, be the ones that we can work with these businesses. Many businesses have unique situations, be able to work with them and try to overcome everything. Yet at the same time, obviously, there are set, codes in the building, electrical, plumbing that you have to apply to. I know it's a little technical there, but that is one area to retain your businesses, to create the proper environment. Bringing new businesses in, the city has just hired a new economic development director who's got good experience in several areas that have been growing. He knows and has a pretty good idea of what needs to be done and is starting to work on it. We need to give him a little time, but that's your key, is the EDC. And to bring the new businesses in. And incentives are a part of it. I believe in incentives, but I also believe in responsible incentives. Because I've seen some situations where to entice a business in, you almost give away the farm. And that's something I just, I have an issue with when that happens. But I've seen it happen in other cities where in order to get that one big business they wanted, they were willing to give everything away. Tax abatements, for I'm talking 90 to 95% tax abatements for X number of years, that's not the way to go. Incentives are, but they need to be responsible. And as far as the EDC, I'm really open on that. I will say this is the first time I've been in a city where it is in the city, rather than as a separate corporation. But it does appear to be working. There have been some hiccups, but I think with the new director in place, I think that was the big key, was getting a well-experienced director in who understands the economic development situation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alcoholic beverages to some of the smaller restaurants was a good thing. It's not necessarily what I would go do, but it's a good thing to bring business into those so they can compete with Christina's and Applebee's and Chili's. We may have to look at some city ordinances to help some of our small businesses. That's one thing I would be willing to look at and working with the city council. As far as bringing in new business, and we would have to look at the EDC, working with the EDC, working with the school board, maybe working with the county, and work out incentives to bring in new businesses. Business is the lifeblood of the community. For many years, the biggest business in town was Forney Schools. It's not necessarily so anymore. If you don't have business, you don't have places for our young people to go get jobs, get their first job, to start learning about making a living for themselves, give them a little extra spending money. So we need businesses in to help our students, our children, to grow as well as our community. As far as the EDC, I think it needs to be a separate entity, though if the rest of the council, if I was on there, voted to keep it within the city, I wouldn't have a problem with that either, but I think it was a separate entity for a reason, and it really needs to stay that way to continue our growth. Thank you.
Politicians take oaths every day, and we see them do things that seems to be not the oaths that they've taken. So let me remind you that if you win this office, you will take office and you will take the oath. And in part, it will say to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution and the laws of the United States and this state, the state of Texas. As well as an office holder, it will add the bribery oath. I don't have the entire oath in front of me, but as a judge, I did administer it many times. How do we know as citizens here in Forney that you're going to take those two oaths seriously?
Okay, well, ethics, I guess the way I would explain it, I guess I went to school on ethics. And I started to school on ethics when I was probably about 11 years old in a little town called Wapanucka, Oklahoma, where I spent my summers with my grandparents. And my grandfather was a man that had survived polio from the age of 7 years old, and was told he wouldn't live to be 13. He came to have a family and 11 children, raised numerous nephews and nieces that lost their family, and then he also had a farm and a ranch. And when I would go and stay in the summers with him, he would tell me about things, teach me how to look a man in the eye, shake his hand, and build integrity that everybody in the community respected. That's how I started learning about integrity and dealing with people. So my oath to office would be based on what I learned from the time I was 13 years old until now.
Takes it seriously or not, you're correct. And I have taken it very seriously ever since I've been on the council. When I started this journey 5 years ago, I was just as green as could be, but I wanted to work really hard to serve my community. I don't have any agendas. I have my kids, my grandkids, and my husband, and I'm loyal to them. I'm a loyal friend. I'm a team player. I have integrity. I have honesty. I'm so transparent. I'm probably too transparent, but I'm a team player and I'm honest. I've always taken it seriously, and I think that everyone should take it seriously. I think that's such a good question to make people really think about. This is just more than representing your community. This is about character and who you are and what you're going to do with your position. And I'm very, I'm kind of overwhelmed by that question. It's from the heart, and I think that's a good question that everyone needs to take to heart. Thank you.
You know, that is a great question. As we look from our leaders from the national, federal government all the way down, we see people that take that oath of office, and the first thing they do is break that oath of office. We see it all the way down with many people. Many people uphold their oath of office. To me, it's a matter of integrity. As I have lived out my life, I've always made handshake promises to people and kept them. I love our Constitution. I love our state. I love our county. And I really love Forney. I would uphold all that. It is so deep into me to uphold the Constitution of the United States when so many people that are not in office, that doesn't even care anymore. We have lost something in our country, and upsets me. I just want to cry to these people thinking, what are you doing? I get mad at people for trampling on the Constitution. It's not within me to do anything against our Constitution, our state, county, or our city. I would uphold it with everything in my being and to death. Thank you.
Personal integrity, that is very, very important for anybody. And it's something that I learned young too, but also as a municipal government employee, that's the best thing you have is your personal integrity. The fact that you're going to be honest no matter what in dealing with the public. And the fact when you say you're going to do something, you're going to do it. And then if the public wants something from you you can't do, you also have to be able to stand there and tell them the same thing. I can't do that, and here's why. You know, personal ethics, personal integrity, very important. I know that in my career there were times I had to make decisions that may have upset someone in the public. You know, that came with it. And as I tell people, I can understand you being mad at me for a decision I make. But what I do that offends me is please don't ever question my integrity and my ethics, because they are the highest standard. As a municipal employee, I felt I was held to a higher standard than say someone in the private sector. I think anyone in the public sector should feel that way. It doesn't matter whether what level of government it is. It shouldn't matter whether it's a school district, a water district, municipality. It doesn't matter. Ethics, personal conduct, extremely important, and you should adhere and hold yourself to that higher standard. And at the same time, when you do something wrong, you better come forth, and if it requires you to do something such as, say, step down, you should do that. That's the right thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have said many, many times to anybody that'll listen, public service is a privilege, and it's not bestowed upon everyone. The people that hold it need to respect it. And you respect it by, again, saying what these guys have said already. You have to hold yourself to a high standard. Honesty, integrity, everything counts. If you don't, you should not be in the place that you're in. If it's just something you can't do, you shouldn't be doing it. Your name defines you, good, bad, or otherwise. And when you hear the name Scott Regan, I want that to be, that's the honest guy. He's candid and everything. He didn't always say what's popular, but at least I know it's truthful. And at the end of the day, in this life that we live, we're defined by our last name. And that's everything to me. Thank you.
You know, as a drill instructor for 3 years, and as a Marine, the Marines have 3 core values: honor, courage, and commitment. And you have moral courage and physical courage. But I think with the courage aspect of it, it kind of gives you something about the morality of things, having the courage to have integrity, to do the right thing. Sure, there's politicians nationally, in the state, wherever, that are crooked. They are. But I I can guarantee you one thing, you'll never hear that about me. If I vote on something, it's because that's what I felt was right. I didn't get no bribe, I didn't get no hookup or nothing like that. I told many people, I don't care if people think I'm a butthole. Okay? I don't. When my son goes to a girl's house and meets their parents and asks, can I take your daughter out for a date? I don't care if their dad says, oh, your dad's Ray Stevens. Man, look. But the one thing I care about, and I've always told my son this, I never want them to say I'm a liar, cheat. I don't lie, I don't cheat, I don't got integrity. I don't want nobody ever to think I took a bribe on the city council. That's important to me, it's important to my family too. All right, so I think integrity is probably, it's way up there. All right, so, and I think our council's got integrity. You know, because I call the bluff, I call it. If I seen it on this city council that I've been on, if I see somebody I feel shady, I call them out. Make no mistake about it, because I'm not scared to do it. So, that's all I have.
Point out that the Board of Trustees does not operate as individuals. We operate as a team, as a group. And so, for you to come to one of the board members and say, would you do this? Really, it needs to be coming through appropriate channels so that we don't go in trying to do something that's just for one person. We need to be representing our school district. I find it interesting that this question was one that got directed to me because I had written down earlier the school board members' code of ethics. And the last word in there says student-centered focus. We don't have a school district if we don't have students. That's what we're about. And knowing that, then our words should be those that can be heard by children. The thoughts we entertain in our mind should be those that can be appropriate around children. Even if some of those children are 18 and thinking otherwise, we need to keep it pure. What is our code of ethics? Equity and attitude, trustworthiness and stewardship, honor and conduct, integrity of character, commitment to serve, and then finally the student-centered focus. I think that when we look at it that way and remember that we are going to work as a group, we're going to be doing what's right ethically.
We're building a second fire station right now. We're hiring more police officers. We're working with the federal government through FEMA to get more firefighters for next year, where they're covering half of the budget for us over a 3-year period, so it's not taking all the money out of taxpayer dollars. We're being proactive when it comes to our first responders. And we should let us be a stepping stone to other communities. As our community grows, we need to increase our first responders. But guess what? If you look at the city budget, guess what's one of the highest things? It's your police officers and your fire department. That's part of it. But we need, and part of government, as part of the city council, that's part of our responsibility. That is one of our main things we're supposed to do is provide protection for our citizens. And so I think we're doing a good job right now. I think we're working well with the fire department, city, all of our city employees, basically. All right, so that's all I have.
Forney is a very safe community. You know, I commend our officers and our first responders as often as I can. Without them at the forefront and front line in our community, we go to bed at night. We don't even think about it. But those guys and ladies are still out there working to keep us safe. And that goes in any community, right? That goes in any of them. How do we retain them and make them want to stay? You know, that's a good question. But what you have to do is create an environment where they do want to stay. They do want to work. They do want to be in. It's all about the climate. It's leadership, right? It's everything. It starts from the top. It trickles on down. You create an atmosphere of positivity. You create an atmosphere where promotions are possible. You give them the opportunity to advance. Those are the things that our officers and our firefighters deserve. They work for that. And we need to be able to deliver on that. And as we grow, and as that second fire station is built, and we have a first-class justice center over there, Very, very proud of it. As we continue to grow, opportunities should be abound, and we should be able to deliver on the promises that once we get these guys and ladies in, we can take care of it, because they deserve no less.
Thank you.
And as far as the leadership angle goes, because that does set the tone within that organization as to what's to be expected. So you want to have top-notch leadership there. The other thing is the compensation package. You know, the city wants to present a very good compensation package, and by that we're not talking just salary. We're talking the benefits as well. Because one thing about municipal employees is that we go into this field knowing that perhaps we're not getting as good a salary, say, as someone in the same position in the private sector. But one thing we do have is there are some good benefits there, particularly along the retirement angle with TMRS. I know because I'm a beneficiary of that right now. And so the key thing is, you know, not only leadership in the organization, but have a very good compensation package for those employees to know that they are wanted and they are welcomed here, and that the organization does want them to stay for a long period of time and not go through a transition where in some agencies I know basically someone gets hired, they no longer or no sooner get trained than boom, they're off to another organization. You don't want that. That just doesn't create stability in the organization. And that applies really citywide, not only police and fire, but all departments as well. Thank you.
Police departments and the other departments inside the city function as a core value of city government. I am all for policemen. I'm all for the firemen. I would keep up with the incentive packages to keep them staying here instead of wanting to go off somewhere else. Also, as safe a city as Forney is, people would want to stay here instead of going into Dallas or Houston or somewhere else where they might make more and get a better package, but it's also a deadlier place sometimes to work in. So the leadership from the city council on down, providing the incentives for our policemen and firemen and our other departments that we have is key. We have to keep up with the core values that the city government works for. Thank you.
One of the most important things on my platform running for mayor is the safety and security of our citizens. That's really important to me. So our police officers, if we're going to have a high turnover, obviously there's a problem. And money a lot of times is an issue. We always want to pay more. It depends on what the budget allows for. But to me, the most important thing is the morale. If the police officers, if there's low morale, you're going to have a high turnover. What do we need to do to keep the high morale, to keep the good police officers that we want to keep? That's what's important to me, is the morale. Thank you.
Well, it's police officers and the public work people, firemen, of course, the number one item in the budget, because that's what the city is supposed to be. We're supposed to be protecting our public, serving them, keeping them safe, and certainly we need to keep incentive packages and keeping it where they can advance up into the programs that we have. It's great we got a new fire station started on the north side of the highway. We needed that for years. The Justice Center is great. I think we've got a lot of incentives to keep the employees here now, but certainly if we need to look at other things in the future, it's always open. But again, the Forney Fire Department and Police Department are exemplary in my view, and they should be well compensated for it. Thank you.
Because I have my thoughts as to what I feel about these kinds of things, but I also know that I need to represent the school district. And I would say that we need to investigate it and have discussion and then come to consensus on what we feel we should do about it. And so that's the way it would go, I think.
between the city and the school board will obviously be taking place at two levels. You know, the city, you've got the city manager, and then you have the school superintendent. That's your staff level right there. You know, the next level to be included obviously would be between the elected officials. You know, how that would take form would be, obviously the staff would discuss it. It might be nothing more than, say, the mayor and the school board president. Or it could be select council members as well as select board members, along with the mayor and the school board superintendent and the school board president being involved in this. So there are different levels there. It would just depends on how those two groups, as they sit down and begin discussions, to get more formal and more involved, and what level and how far would they want to take it. They would most likely start with the superintendent and city manager, and then evolving from that point.
The school board, there is different levels starting out, and it depends on what the items were. If it was for discussion of new schools, it might be members of the trustees and members of the council getting together and maybe working on some of the ideas for that. You know, there's just different levels. It might just be the city manager and the superintendent working together. As far as for working with people, my wife tells me I've never met a stranger. And so I can talk school level, I can talk to the person digging ditches because I have done that before. There's not many jobs I haven't done throughout my life. So I can visit and work with just about anybody that comes around. And I'm pretty good at it. Thank you.
You know, this is relatively simplistic when you think about it. Everything comes down to communication. Without communication, you fail. With communication, you build bridges. You build bridges of rapport. You build bridges of trust. That happens in time. It's not overnight. Again, communication is the foundation of anything positive. Because again, I can give you numerous examples probably just in regular life where failure occurred because of the lack of communication. So when I say it's simplistic, it truly is. But we need to build trust with each other. We need to build rapport, and we need to expedite that and do it sooner than later. Thank you.
Yes, I'm for a tax cut exactly the way that we did it this year. We lowered our taxes 2.5 cents. Our bond rating is going up. S&P is AA-. We're fiscally sound. We just refinanced some bonds without kicking them down the road, and we've got $1.5 million hard, cold dollars that we wouldn't have had if we weren't fiscally responsible. So we need to continue to go in the direction that we're going. Thank you.
So I'm in favor of a tax cut, and there's several ways we can do a tax cut. First of all, we need to bring in high-quality developments into the community so we can maintain our tax base that we have here. What we're not recognizing is that with these higher taxes and these high-density developments is we're going to be driving down our home values, which are going to actually raise taxes at the same time. So when she's talking about lowering taxes as exactly the way that she had, that just won't work. Because the lower valuations are going to drive the taxes up higher. Only way you can do it is just the opposite. We've got to get our valuations up. And to do that, there's several things else we can do. We need to bring in high quality retail. We continue to go out and get those to come into the community. We also need to work on the infrastructure that we have that will help bring about good quality retail to the community. Right now we're just choked because of it. So there's several things we need to do, but we need to get the taxes low first.
I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. I also again thank both the Chamber and the Forney ISD schools for allowing this venue to be held tonight. It's great. I always like to see as many people here as possible because that's the only way the public can educate themselves, is to hear from each one of us up here. For myself, it's the first time running for public office, and what I do bring to the office is my background in municipal government, then my experiences here in Forney, serving on the various boards in this community. I look forward to the opportunity to serve on council, would very humbly and gratefully ask for your vote. There's some fine candidates up here, and the big key thing is for everybody to get out and vote, please, because that's something that just doesn't happen anywhere. We need folks out voting. So thank you very much, and I will be around afterwards. If anybody has any specific questions for me, I'll be happy to answer them or talk to you. Thank you.
Setting all this up for the school board and superintendent who are here, for allowing us to use this great school. And all the council meetings I've attended or county commissioners meetings I've attended, I've seen very few people who come after the vote. I'm glad all you're out here looking at us and trying to decide who you want to vote for. But I would like to see a crowd like this at the city council. I was there Tuesday night. There was 15 people, not counting city employees, council, or reporters. And, it is our government, your government. You need to be involved also. I would like to say that will be available at any time that you would like to ask me a question if you so voted me in. And I'm very transparent and I'm very available. I'm retired and anybody can get hold of me for any reason at any time. And I would like for you to vote for Rick Jackson, place 6, for the Forney City Council. Thank you.
It is nice to see a crowd like this. Democracy is a beautiful thing. It truly is. We're the envy of countries around the world. And for us to get together tonight for an exercise like this, it's pretty awesome. It doesn't get much better than this for me. 2 years ago, I stood before the council, the seated council, and people in attendance that night. And I stated, this is a quote, "I stand before you tonight, but a simple servant to the people." This is something that hits home for me that I'll never forget. I will not forget. I continue to keep it in mind every day. Every day of service is a privilege, and I do not take it lightly. I will continue to serve with honor, respect the position. You'll never question my integrity or my agenda, because I don't have one. Thank you guys very much. I would appreciate your support. Thank you.
This is an exciting time. We live in America, and men and women go overseas every day to fight for our freedom so that we can vote. This is a free country. Exercise your right to vote. I have been serving our community for the last 5 years, and as mayor, I want to serve my council in the same capacity and continue to serve the community. Please, I would respectfully like your vote.
Thank you for all coming out tonight, listen to us, and have the opportunity to share our views. Of course, we do have different views, but that's the great thing about this country. We do get to share, and that's what it's all about. But you can see tonight there is a polar opposite in views here. I want to bring low taxes. I want to bring good quality development. I want to bring good infrastructure to the community, and I want to do it now. I want to work with the schools. I want to make sure we keep our quality of education that we've all come to Forney for. We want to keep the culture that we have, and we want to develop that moral culture. Like I said earlier, it'd be a fabric for everyone to try to follow Forney on. I appreciate your vote, but I'm not just asking for your vote. I'm asking for you to empower yourself to get involved in your community and make a difference. And let's make a difference for Forney. Thank you.